in terms of the circulation of life energy in the body, what is the healthiest circulation of energy in the body? Does it have a direction? Does it have a movement? How do we think of that?
There are many layers that comprise the body, and so there are energy channels where energy moves more in one direction than the other, but quite often there can be a two-way flow at the same time. It's also possible to tune into a flow that's going in one direction more than the other direction. In the same way that an acupuncture needle, depending which way you twist it, will have a different effect. Which way you spin, depending on which hemisphere you're in, will have a different effect. So the energy channels, some of them are circular. There are energy centers, but they've got layers of depth. They're processing different things at different times, so they will move in different ways. And these are the things that people have heard about. There are plenty of energies that will zip zap through the body, appear in one place, disappear in another place, that no one's really mapping or charting in a very kind of public and well-known way. There may be people out there doing it, sure, but they're things that most people haven't heard of. And this is why we have to be really open-minded and really open to what's going on. Otherwise, if people want to talk about mastery, you can never master something if you're just following the primer book.
Right.
You have to be really open.
One of the circulations of energy in the body that I became familiar with in my journey is this principle called water up, fire down, where cooling energy comes up from the kidneys and cools the brain and pushes the fire energy from the chest down for circulation, ultimately resulting in a warm belly and a cool head. Are there any principles like that in terms of your work that would be useful to us?
My first principle to everyone who starts is not to be concerned with energy going upwards, not to try to push energy upwards, not to be not trying to move it upwards, not really following it upwards, being aware of when one is becoming ungrounded, and to always have everything going down. What will flow out of a person will be toxins, and it's working with gravity. All of my energy work is pretty much working with gravity. There are some upward movements, but the collective and balancing movements are about basically everything going downwards. It's basically like defecation, and everything is dropping out of the body energetically. Until that happens, a person can't really empty themselves of toxic stuff. And until they empty themselves of toxic stuff, until that happens, they won't be able to take in clear, clean energy. It's like adding, it's trying to ferment something in a dirty jar that's got molds in it that are unfavorable to creating the fermentation.
So when you talk about releasing toxicity down and out and through the hands and through the soles of the feet and the body, what's in the toxicity? Is it food? Is it heavy metals? Is it energetic stagnation? Or all of that? What is the toxicity?
The word that people would use these days would be trauma. It's a knotting up, it's a defense, it's a protection, but it's a freezing around unprocessed energies, in the same way that if you started eating black peppercorns, your intestines would protect you by coating them with mucus. And so inside a person are all these balls of energy and unprocessed memories and experiences that are coated, and they're not really moving, they're just coated and left in a holding pattern. If the energy had been flying for that person, they wouldn't be held in the body anymore.
So a lot of what they would say back in the Tao Te Ching, what doesn't move becomes brittle and breaks, really applies to the energy work.
Yeah, many problems happen when things don't move. It becomes stagnant, it becomes stinky, it becomes intolerable, it gets too hot sometimes, it becomes painful, it blocks awareness. All problems come from lack of flow.
So going back to an earlier question about willpower, it's okay to use some will. So, sometimes it takes some effort to make yourself move your body because your body needs to move.
Yeah, the thing is though, is that you're hitching your willpower up to a known positive experience. That's what gives the motivation. It's like, I did this once, it was really good, I still recall it. Most people forget what a good experience it was, and I want that again. And I know that I may have to get up early, and I may have to, it may be cold, and I may have to put some warm clothes on, I may have to travel to a nature beauty spot to do it, but I'm going to do it because I know it gave me pleasure, it gave me health benefits, it calmed down my nervous system before. A person has to keep that remembrance in front of them. If they don't have something in front of them, they're just going to roll over and go back to sleep.
I've got one more question for you before we need to take a short break, Dave. One of the things when you talked about your enlightenment is that I was a little bit surprised to hear you say that you don't practice the energy work as much as you used to prior to your enlightenment. But it seems like your relationship to food is that's something that's really part of your day-to-day environment. But can you talk a little bit about what happened that you don't need to practice the energy work so much?
So, got my mosquito there. I was doing a lot of energy work, and the energy work involved a lot of physical movement, quite intense physical movement actually, more intense than sometimes I teach to people, because not everyone can do what I used to do. But energy work doesn't have to be very physical. And after I got enlightened, the energies were just moving around my body by themselves, and I'm just watching them, and they're doing stuff, and it's fascinating. And partly I don't want to move my body because I'm paying so much attention to it. I don't want to get up and do a form. And energy work can eventually become a spontaneous, unscripted form. But the thing is that it was just happening by itself, and I'm just watching it. And so what I missed by not moving was I missed stretching, I missed breaking up things that are in the muscles and in the circulation system, and fast or heavy breathing or clearing stuff out, almost puking, coughing up stuff. I missed all that by not doing physical energy work. But it wasn't that I didn't want to do it, it was just that the feeling of energy moving around my body was so pleasurable. I mean, I don't know if we can say to people, but when you're really in pleasure, you don't really move sometimes, okay? So I was in so much pleasure that I couldn't move. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back with more questions with Dave Oshana.